are exploring listening to albums. It is a lost art form. We took an hour out of our day. We switched off the phones, we switched off the computers, we did not answer the door. We sat down and we listened to the artist's vision and concept. We are reviewing A Flock of Seagulls and their self-titled first album. Released on the 30th of April 1982, the debut album by A Flock of Seagulls was recorded at Battery Studios in London and produced by Mike Howlett and Bill Nelson on Jive Records. The album made top 10 in Canada and America. It peaked at number 32 in the UK and Sweden. The sleeve was a colourful affair, as natural geography seems to happen within the confines of a living room. A plugged-in TV plonked into the middle of the ocean-coloured carpet with what looks like Elvis on the screen. To the left, a sun-scorched beach with red mountains. The multicoloured flock of seagulls as birds are painted onto the yellow walls with a fiery red setting sun. There's some green curtains with a window cracked open, and outside there is a burnt red sky with yellow clouds and the black silhouettes of what look like trees. Formed in Liverpool in 1980, brothers Michael and Alistair score with Francis Lee Maudsley and Paul Reynolds. The band's name was taken from the Stranglers' song Toiler on the Sea and the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Mike was previously a hairdresser, and the Flock of Seagulls' hair would certainly help get them some attention. They would practice in Mike's hair salon. They started playing clubs and wound up with a record contract. There was the all-important John Peel session, which aired on the 12th of May 1981. They were managed by Checkmount Limited. This debut body of work was their most successful, i.e. 1982. Mike Score was the lead vocalist and keyboardist, his brother Ali on drums and percussion, Paul Reynolds on lead and rhythm guitar, with Frank Maudsley providing the bass. This album is a viewer-requested selection, we've said that, and we were happy to revisit this for you. For me, A Flock of Seagulls is a band that had some decent moments, so I went into the review kind of 50-50, not expecting too much. Visually, I can say they played their part well. First song is The Modern Love is Automatic. Starting with a desolate wind and squealing guitar, the beat comes in strong. It achieves that brand of stark new romanticism that was popular during this period. You can hear influences from The Cure, Gary Newman, and Ultravox. I think this song is a good and true intro to the album. It was released as a single in November 1981. Phil Spector was impressed enough with this song and the rest of the album to want to produce their next collection. Sadly, this wasn't to be due to a conflict with Jive Records and Mr. Spector's ever-increasingly reclusive lifestyle. Messages. Being a pop geek has its disadvantages, and what immediately strikes me is that another Liverpool band had an amazing number 11 hit back in 1980 with the same title. I love that song. Messages from A Flock of Seagulls works well in the context of this album. They definitely have a distinct sound. The brittleness of their guitars and effect the associates would use. I find their choruses a little repetitive. I like the instrumental refrain post-chorus. So at this stage of the game, I don't love their work, but I'm not against it. I Ran So Far Away. Here's the big single, a number 1 hit in Australia, number 7 in New Zealand, and number 9 in the US. Mike Score looks like a demented Joan Rivers in the video, feverishly attacking the keyboards in a red blouse with white makeup and a hairdo that resembles a botched beef Wellington. This is one of those songs that was part of the British invasion in America, where the band hadn't conquered home turf. Der Kommissar is another example. She Blinded Me with Science, another. I don't know if I'm making any sense. Seagulls had one big hit in the UK with Wishing. Well deserved, very much in keeping with the British music scene. But the American audience at times would cherish things that just wouldn't cut it back home. And they would very enthusiastically come to you as a Brit and remind you of songs that were big here back in the day. And I Ran just doesn't resonate with me as something that was great from '82. I like aspects of the production, which again remind me of Ultravox, and I'm not being facetious. I like the way I Ran ends. Another interesting thought is you might think they were singing about the country, as in Iran. is how it is pronounced here. In context of the album, this song doesn't do any damage. I prefer it to Messages, but Modern Love is Automatic is I personally find to be a better song. Space Age Love Song. The fourth single from the album is my favorite so far. It's Earnest. Chart performance following a top 10 was a mite disappointing, with it making number 30 in the US, 68 in Australia, 31 in New Zealand. Its number 34 placing in the UK, however, was a good thing. I like that it is more synth-heavy, and the vocals are whimsical and floating. OMD in the future would go on to use this style of ethereality on something like Forever Live and Die. So Space Age Love Song gets a thumbs up, and I really like their record sleeves. I think their sleeves to their songs are great. You Can Run. I like this for being a change in direction. It's a little pedestrian, but the variety is appreciated. The drums and rhythm guitar drive this song for the most part. The singing sounds like an ill-rehearsed secondary school chorister, but that, believe it or not, makes it somewhat endearing in its nature. Telecommunication. A New Calibration for the Nuclear Age, another single. It didn't chart. This song makes Messages completely superfluous to this album. It's short and sweet, and they nail what it is they're going for as this space-age boutique boffin quartet. I don't love it. It's adequate. I certainly don't dislike it. Standing in the Doorway. This song stands out, chilled and ambient. It's purring synths and shuddering guitars. I like the intro. It gives way to a Gary Newman tribute with a memorable guitar hook. It's a bit different. The space-age noises mean it's definitely not boring. Enjoyable enough to listen to. Can you hear that I'm not excited, though? That doesn't mean this music is bad. It just means there's other music out there of this ilk which does significantly more for me. Don't Ask Me. I sit here all alone and watch the saucers in the sky. I think this song is well written. I think the performance is lackluster. I don't need a whole album of this. I believe the Seagulls would have done a better job having just 8 songs on this long player. I don't really see where else they can go at this point in the album. I'm getting a bit bored. DNA. And the Grammy goes to... No, I'm not kidding. A Flock of Seagulls won the Best Award for Rock Instrumental Performance in 1983. They were probably just as shocked as you and I. It's a short piece of well-produced, timely music that I'm glad was recognized as being noteworthy. I agree. I love that this band have this Grammy and that Phil Spector loved them. I am not dismissing A Flock of Seagulls. I like some of their later singles a lot more than what's on this album. I'm happy the DNA brightens up this collection. Tokyo, I wasn't expecting Mike Score to consult his mother on anything, but in this song he does ask her advice on Japan-bound love interest. It's Ali's mum too, so I think we can excuse them that particular un-rock-and-roll turn of including their mum in the mix. This goes on amidst the usual sound bites musically of what a European thinks a Japanese synth hook would sound like, usually pretty corny. The Vapors in Japan had this Far East interest sewn up pretty well as far as I'm concerned. To me, this track is a little under par, but at least it doesn't go on forever. Man-Made. This track is a keeper. It's in my top 4 on this set. It's heavier. I like the chord changes, and there's more attention given to the production of the vocal. It's almost Pink Floyd-esque, and there's a believability in the way it's delivered, which makes me pleased the album ends this way. I mean, I think I've said it. I've said it already. It's not that this music is bad. I think what happened is they got lucky in the US having that hit, Iran, which I just don't think is that great. It's okay. It irritates me a little bit because it's just not as good as Wishing, which is an amazing song. It's like the best Flock of Seagulls song as far as I'm concerned. You know, the more you live, the more you love. So I like this band in other areas. As far as listening to a whole album of Flock of Seagulls, though, you know, this is what I'm finding with these reviews, is that I don't need to, you know, singles are a great thing. They really are. And then you find that they capture the magic on singles in a lot of cases. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. There are, of course, we found them. You know, someone like Cyndi Lauper with When You Were Mine. We find that there are other great songs on the album. But this is not one of those albums. A Flock of Seagulls, you know, you can tell that... I don't know. I just don't really see where it's going. I get it, but I just don't... I can see that it was probably tailored towards the American audience, maybe? Is that what I'm trying to say? But it's that whole thing of Americans choosing these strange acts because they think, oh God, they're so British, and yet the British people don't make it a hit. Thomas Dolby, She Blinded Me with Science, not a hit in the UK. Der Kommissar. All these other things, like I Don't Want to Lose Your Love Tonight. That's another British band. Big here, did nothing back home. You know, you have a lot of these bands, British bands that do great in the States and not so well back home. So, I'm rambling on a little bit here, but Flock of Seagulls, for the Flock of Seagulls album, final mark from running commentary is 60%.